Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Josefa Kapadia and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Welcome everybody, episode 260 of Get Paid for Your Pad. Today I'm talking to an Airbnb SEO specialist. I came across this very smart man while scrolling through some Facebook groups, and I saw a blog post that he wrote about how the Airbnb search algorithm works. And he had an amazing blog post actually with lots of different factors, and he tested all this kind of stuff, and it looked super professional. So I was very intrigued. I hit him up, got him on the show. So welcome to the show, Kelvin Ma.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, Kelvin Ma.
Okay, good. I guess it's not that hard. I've had more difficult names to pronounce in the last 259 episodes that I have published.
Yeah, as long as you're not calling me Kevin. My aunt still calls me Kevin after 30 plus years of on being on this earth.
Right. Cool, man. I'm really excited to talk to you because when I first started Airbnb hosting back in 2012, after I created my listing and I started thinking about, okay, how do I maximize profit? How do I get the best results on this platform? The first number one thing I realized was, okay, I need to understand how this algorithm works. I need to understand how Airbnb determines what listings to show to the users. And so that was really sort of like the first goal that I had after I created my listing. And the way I did it, I just looked at the Airbnb website. I used common sense and I experimented a little bit, but it's by no means as method. I can't pronounce that word. Methodical. Methodical. Thank you. Oh God. Yeah, exactly. As you did it. I mean, you've tested you did A/B testing, and I saw a blog post where you had all these you had 50 different factors and the correlation coefficients and all sorts of mathematical stuff that I used to be really into when I was still studying econometrics back in the day. But yeah, I was really impressed with your research. And so I'm really excited to learn more about this, this infamous Airbnb algorithm, and everybody wants to know how it works, and everybody wants to be more visible, get more bookings. And so educate us, tell us, how does it work? What's important? How can people get better visibility for their Airbnb listing?
Awesome. Well, thanks for getting me on the show, Jasper. So the Airbnb search algorithm, I think a lot of people are constantly thinking about how maybe not thinking about, but what they're saying is that the Airbnb algorithm is very much like Google, and there's lots and lots of comparisons between those two search engines. And I'll be the first one to say that although there are certain aspects of it that are common, I would say the majority of it is probably not. That is just because the way that Airbnb works is that it's a supply and demand type of business versus something like Google, which is a search engine for content, and content can be visited thousands and thousands of times, and you can never really run out of that content. Whereas versus on Airbnb, those listings do disappear because there's only 365 days a year that you can book your listing, so you can really only be visible for those times when you are available. So it is about that supply and demand aspect of it. I guess on my end, I do know quite a bit about Google, and I know a little bit about Pinterest, and hopefully I know a lot about Airbnb. So when I think of what search engine Airbnb is very similar to, I would probably say Amazon, just because Amazon is again like a supply and demand type of search engine. These search engines are not as sophisticated as Google's, but that's kind of a good thing for us as hosts and everything like that. So Amazon has products, and when products run out, they cannot sell them, and which is just exactly like Airbnb, except that when the products run out on Amazon, they still just say not available. Versus on Airbnb, you just don't show up. And that's, in a way, that's just, it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just how it is, because Airbnb will not serve you up as a listing if you just aren't going to be available for that time frame, right? So that's kind of the main difference that we kind of, the viewpoint that we want to look at when we're trying to think about how Airbnb works. That blog post that Jasper, you're talking about, it's just called Airbnb ranking factors. So Google has a bunch of ranking factors, and so does Airbnb. And Airbnb's got a very, very smart team of people building this search engine that they definitely value quite a bit. Right? There is a reason why you can't just organize things, at least at this moment, organize things in Airbnb from ascending to descending prices. Right? They don't let you do that for a reason, because they want they want the data to speak for itself, and to utilize the smart people that they have in the room to serve you the best listing that they think you are going to book the fastest, essentially, right? Because for them, it's about making a booking decision in the quickest amount possible. For them, I think their goal is about 3 days. That's kind of the time frame that they want someone to initially start their search to finally deciding. Obviously, I think most people that are listening to this, especially if you do travel, you probably don't want to spend 3 days on there. So obviously the faster you book, then the better. The better for Airbnb, and also the better for you in a way too, right? So that blog post that Jasper spoke about, that's with these Airbnb ranking factors that we looked at and tried to, we've just been running different tests and things like that to try and figure out whether or not these are important. We don't have all of them. There's about 150 that the Airbnb has mentioned are factors and stuff like that. And at this point, we've got about 28 that we've, believe that this is what's correlating with better search visibility. And yeah, that's pretty much it for that aspect of the beginning parts of what's going on in the Airbnb search algorithm.
Awesome. Well, you touched on a lot of things, but what I want to talk about mostly is, what are those factors and what are the most important factors? I've gotten a lot of questions actually lately. I've been reviewing some people's listings on YouTube during YouTube live sessions, and I've noticed that one listing that I was reviewing, it didn't really show up in the search result, and the host also wasn't seeing very many bookings, which makes sense, right? She was all the way down. I had to zoom in on the map like a lot in order to find the listing. And oddly enough, like she actually messaged me and she said that she called Airbnb to ask them why her listing wasn't visible, and apparently the Airbnb employee then manually changed something, and suddenly she got a couple bookings. So if your listing is not very visible, you might want to call Airbnb and just like harass them until they, just pump, kick up your listing to the front. But those ranking factors. I mean, the way I think about it is kind of what you said. It's in the end of the day, Airbnb wants to get bookings, right? They want people they want to show listings to people that are likely to be booked. And so anything I guess you can do to make it more likely that somebody books your listing when they look at it. So attractiveness of the listing, I guess, is very important, right? Having good pictures and making sure that you have pictures of all the different spaces. I still see, because I use Airbnb a lot as a traveler, I still see listings where it will say it's a 3-bedroom house, but then they only show 2 bedrooms. They don't show the 3rd bedroom. And so then I'm thinking, okay, well, what's the deal with this 3rd bedroom? Does it look terrible? Does it not have a bed? There must be a reason why the host is not showing it. And so there's no way I would ever book an Airbnb listing if I can't see all the different rooms. And so I imagine that person, he is probably trying to be smart by saying, hey, the 3rd bedroom doesn't look as attractive, so I'm just going to leave it out. But as a result, I'm pretty sure nobody books it. And so that will actually really hurt his ranking, I think, in the search results. But going back to the blog post that you wrote, the Airbnb ranking factors, which actually can be found, by the way, on remotespill.com/Airbnb ranking factors. I'll put the link in the show notes. But on number 1, there's guest satisfaction. And so I guess that's the ratings. That's based on the ratings that guests give to hosts, right?
Yeah. So that's, I believe it makes sense that it would be 0 to 100. I've never actually seen someone with extremely, extremely low guest satisfaction ratings. Most of the time we see people that have, just anyone that we're interacting with that we can find at least generally bounces around the 90 to 100. I actually haven't seen anyone with lower guest satisfaction. And I guess a small side note of if you want to figure out what guest satisfaction is, then the easiest thing for you to do to look at your listing yourself is just to right click on your listing. So your actual listing page where your photos are and things like that, just go and right click on it and then go view page source. And then you'll see a whole bunch of code. Don't be worried. It's just the way things look. Just a whole bunch of code, and you can go Command F and type guest _ satisfaction. So just so essentially one word with the underscore in between guest and satisfaction, and then you'll see your score right in there. So that'll give you an idea for what's going on and how Airbnb is essentially judging you. It's your star ratings, but it's a much more granular viewpoint of your star ratings.
Right. So just to clarify, if I have a 4.8 rating, then that would correspond to 95. Correct? Am I calculating this correctly?
I don't know because I don't have a calculator with me, but that's essentially what it would be. It should be your star ratings, but in the form of from 0 to 100. So it's not it's not 4.5. It's a very, very small number, and you'll see people that we'll actually see people that have high rankings and stuff like that don't actually have 100 guest satisfaction, the score of 100. So they might have something like 98 or something like that. We've seen people bounce around between 98 to 100 and still be decently ranked.
Right. I mean, if you have 98 to 100, then you're probably ranked really well, no?
Yeah, no, for sure. That definitely helps with it. I think one thing that's not surprisingly that isn't surprising is reviews. Reviews are just a huge factor. And if you want to get booked up a lot, is just have lots of reviews and a very low price. that's the right. Which isn't ideal, of course, but that's the way it works.
Right. So the number of reviews, and then we're talking about the number of reviews in the last 30 days or 3 months. Right, the number of reviews you got 5 years ago doesn't really matter, I guess, right?
To be honest, I'm actually not sure about that in terms of the recency of those reviews. We've just seen that it's the amount of reviews matters, and one simple way to kind of let's say kind of back that up in a way is just go whenever you're on Airbnb, go and look at one of your competitors in your area, or just even look at your own listing, and you'll notice that when you go to the very bottom there, and there's that similar listings area, or where I think Airbnb changes it sometimes, you say, homes that are similar to this. If you look at those, there's 12 recommendations that they make, and the first one that they always make is the one with the highest price, the highest reviews and the lowest price out of at least those first three. So for them, they're just that's just what they're pushing more of.
Right, and number two ranking factor is absolute price. Right, it has a correlation of 0.901. Guest satisfaction has a correlation of 0.906. And for those who don't know what correlation is or what those numbers mean, it's essentially what it means is if you have a correlation of 0, that means that two things are just not they're not related. There's no relation that can be found on a statistical level. And if it's 1, then they're perfectly correlated, which means that they're basically, if one happens, then the other one happens also always. So correlation coefficients are always expressed between 0 and 1, and the higher, the more correlation there is. And so, guest satisfaction, absolute price having a correlation to page rank of 0.9, it's a lot. It's a very high number, and so those factors definitely are very, very important. Absolute price is an interesting one because, obviously, here's the thing. A lot of people think about Airbnb in terms of getting fully booked, right? They just want to get the maximum amount of bookings. They just want to be fully booked, and then they think that they're doing, that's kind of the goal. But in my opinion, it's not really the goal. The goal is to make as much money, right, as possible. So maximize profit, which is not the same, right? Because you can if you lower your price enough, you get to full occupancy pretty quickly. But there's a good chance that actually not being fully occupied might be more optimal, right? If you're fully booked, that's probably a sign that you should raise your prices. And so, absolute price is a funny one because you can't really take that factor and optimize for it, because that just means that you're lowering your price. But what I will say is, and I'll let you speak as well and see if you agree with this, is I think when you're starting out, the first month or so, in order to get to full occupancy, I definitely think it's a smart idea to to start with a pretty low price. Because you're not really losing that much. I mean, if you think of an entire Airbnb career, let's say you're renting out for 5 years, right? The amount of money that you lose in the first month by setting your prices really low is over the time, that longer time span is not that much, but it pretty much guarantees that you're getting a really good head start, right? It guarantees that you're getting a lot of reviews, getting a lot of bookings, and those factors contribute then to better visibility, which in turn gives you more bookings, etc. So, but if you've been hosting for a while, you have a great reputation, you already have 80% booking or 90% booking occupancy rate, then just lowering the price to get better visibility is probably not optimal. Do you agree?
Yes. I mean, I guess there's, it's kind of like, there's this other aspect too with Airbnb when you're just starting out and you've got a new listing. Well, actually, let's back it up just a second. So the one thing about, at least from what I've seen, and I'm sure that we both agree on this, is just that everything with vacation rentals is all supply and demand. I know we've said that a couple times this episode already, but I don't think there could be a truer fact than that, just because you only have 365 days to maximum to rent out your place, and it's likely that you're not going to book all 365 days, because it's not possible to do unless you are running something very efficiently, which I think Jasper would want to speak to somebody who's doing that. So yeah, it does make sense that you want to just from a business standpoint, it makes more sense to charge people more money per night, and have lower occupancy rate in a way, just so you can fill out your weekends at least, because those are going to be your prime slots most likely. And then you're also not deteriorating your actual listing itself by having lots of people in there, and just not causing havoc, but anything can happen. And the more people you have in there, the more times you have them inside, and the more times it's occupied in there, then you just aren't going to what's the word? It's just not as good for your business, because you might have some unforeseen costs that arise for you. So I think we're probably on the same page with that kind of stuff.
Well, kind of. But then I would argue that, in my opinion, like just having more bookings, like a booking has a monetary value, right? Let's say somebody books your place, pays $500. Then obviously you're making $500 minus the 3% that Airbnb takes. But there's a sort of like a secondary value to that booking, right? Because that booking will generate a review, right? And the fact that the listing was booked in the first place probably has a positive effect on the visibility of your listing. Plus, the review has a positive effect on your listing, right? The visibility, the ranking. Plus, that person who stayed at your place might tell somebody else about your listing. Plus, that person might come back and stay at your listing. And so the way I kind of think about it is, hosting somebody on top of the direct monetary value that you get out of it, there's a second amount of money that essentially you're getting, which is impossible to determine how much it exactly is, because what's the chance that you get a return visit and a repeat visit, should I say? What's the chance that that person tells somebody else? How much is the visibility affected, and what's the chance that you get another booking from that extra visibility? And so I hear what you're saying. You're saying, well, you at some point you don't want to lower your price too much for the days that aren't as popular, because there's also some potential costs involved with every booking, right? Because there's a chance that you might have some problems with the guests. They might cause some damage, and so you're saying there's kind of like there's a floor, right? There's a minimum price that you kind of shouldn't go below, because below that price, the sort of the hassle that you have from managing the booking, plus the risk that something gets damaged, etc., is actually, that doesn't outweigh it outweighs the money that you're making on that booking, and so you're better off not having that booking in the first place. Am I saying it correctly?
I think, yeah, for sure. There was probably a little misalignment from what we were talking about. So if we were saying if we're talking about just pure search engine optimization, we'll call it search engine optimization. Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure. More bookings is just, it gets you into what I call that like circle of success, right? There is a reason why it's not, listings that are on Airbnb for a very long time get booked all the time, because Airbnb it's like equity that they've built with the Airbnb platform. It says, okay, well, this person has all these 5-star reviews, and and they've got a decent price, and people seem to be getting good responses from them based on all these different factors that we look at. So for sure, yeah, it is about that, getting that circle of success too, where you are being more favored by Airbnb. One thing that kind of grazed over was when you have a new listing, one thing that's important to remember is that your listing is being pushed up by Airbnb in what are known as the organic search results, right? So when people are looking at Airbnb, you'll see a mixture of older listings, more established listings, plus some brand new listings that may not even have any reviews in them. The reason I would assume why Airbnb does that is because I guess in the world of technology and things like that, they have these things called magic moments. So it's like, what's that magic moment that someone on their platform receives? And as a host, I don't know about you, but I've noticed that every time I when I'm putting up listings or something like that, it gets booked pretty quickly. So something's going on there, and the listing, I'm sure with every new listing that you create, it gets better. But even the first time I did it, I think within like 4 hours, I had 3 bookings, and I realized, whoa, I'm not sure if I'm doing something right or something wrong here, but this is awesome. So yeah, there is that factor too, where Airbnb is giving you that search visibility. So I think it's important, this pricing for sure, to have it lower, so that you can attract more reviews and do that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's the other end of the spectrum of also taking advantage of the fact that you can kind of get bookings at those higher prices too, right? So it is about kind of optimally pleasing Airbnb by giving them that signal that, hey, my price is not the lowest and it's not the highest, and it's maybe in that 75% range there, in terms of pricing, because I think if in a weird way, Airbnb is in a very interesting state as well, right? Because there's all this supply that's coming into the Airbnb platform, and that's essentially, it does lower prices and stuff like that. But that's actually not good for Airbnb either, because it makes more sense for all of us to have higher prices so that they can get more of their 3% or whatever they're going to charge in the future. So they're in a sticky situation, which is why their search algorithm is so important to them as well, right? They're constantly working on these things, updating them, updating different things, and just switching things around. I'm sure if you've been a host on Airbnb for any amount of time, at least 6 months, I'm sure you've seen the Airbnb platform change, a few times, and maybe even change a little bit and then revert back to an older way, right? Because you were probably in some sort of split test that they were running, and they thought, okay, we're going to try it out in your geography, and whether or not we're going to get more bookings by, all sorts of tests. Like a test that we ran across recently, which is very old, was that we ran across a picture of their own internal testing tool. So Airbnb is constantly testing things with their platform, and we got a screenshot of what they look at in terms of what makes a good test and what it makes a bad test. And what they were testing was the amount of listings that show up on each page. I think it's about 17 or 18 listings that show up on each page. So what they were trying to do is they were just testing, what happens when we show people 10 listings, what happens when we show people 20 listings. So they were kind of messing around with that stuff, and what you see today is the result that garnered them obviously the most amount of conversions.
Yeah, it drives me nuts that Airbnb keeps changing everything, because that means like I have to update my book. There's all sorts of screenshots in my book, and then Airbnb changes everything, and it's a massive pain in the butt to update a book on Amazon. In fact, you can't really update it, and so it's basically the only thing that I can do is just write an entire new book, which is what I'm doing. But that's a different topic. Anyway, let's go back to the ranking factors. So we talked about guest satisfaction and absolute price. The next one that really surprised me: listing word count. That's very highly correlated with PageRank visibility. Why is that? If I write a whole bunch of nonsense on my Airbnb listing, is it gonna go up in the rankings?
So I guess first of all, we're looking at this specific chart that was created here. This chart was, for full transparency, this chart wasn't created by me. It was created by someone called, his name's Nick Child. He did a study a couple years ago on this kind of stuff, and this is just one part of the of this. Essentially, this blog post where we're looking and testing different things, but we're also collecting a whole bunch of different sources as well. So this is Nick's work in a sense. So with this specific image that we're looking at. Too bad we're on audio right now because then people could see what we're talking about. But when we talk about this listing word count being a high correlation, I can't speak, of course, 100% to what he's saying, just because this is his work in a way, right? But what I can say is that the one thing that matters with Airbnb, of course, and you just have to think about it, you kind of have to put your marketing hat on, right? I'm sure all of us have been to those very annoyingly long sales pages on I don't know, some sort of product that you purchase online, and it's very, very long to a point where you're either going to buy it because you read it all, or you're not going to buy it because it's too long, or you might even just skip it because you just want to go through that, right? For us, what we find is that a listing description that is longer, that has that is scannable, very similar to, like, if you're anywhere in the blogging sphere, you'll know when you see a good blog post versus a bad blog post, simply by the fact that a bad blog post looks like the legal transcript that you would see in a terms and service. It's like one big block and it's written by a lawyer. You don't want that stuff, right? So for your Airbnb listing, you want to have different sections in there so that for the people that want to read, if you don't have captions in your photos, which you should have captions, but it allows people to go and dive into your Airbnb listing description and grab what they want to look at very quickly. So just make sure it's very, very scannable, and naturally that leads to more bookings, because people have more clarity in terms of whether you're going to be the right decision for them. Plus, I know it's kind of a weird thing, but plus a longer listing also means that they don't reach the very bottom of your page either, which is where Airbnb basically says, okay, well, if this person hasn't booked, we're going to try and send them to different places. So it's it's kind of like it's a little bit of everything, but most of it is just it just comes down to marketing at the end of the day, and that kind of sensibility. Even if you're not in marketing, that unfortunately maybe it doesn't come as clear to you. But you just have to think about how other people are doing things, and especially in the online space, like blogs and things like that, and kind of translate that into your own listing, having bedroom sections, kitchen sections, whatever, and add in some emojis while you're in there too.
Yeah. Those emojis, I still have them in my title, although officially it's not allowed. But you know what? Okay, so when it comes to description, I think what you're saying is very, very true. You definitely want to make it very readable, because then at least you have a chance that your guest is going to read some of your description. If you have a big text block, then they probably won't read anything. And then you have to explain them everything, and they're going to ask all these annoying questions. So that's definitely a good idea to have everything paragraphed, use bullet points, make it very readable. And by the way, talking about readable, I've actually done some research about how to write a readable email, because I've been writing a lot of emails to my list. And if you haven't signed up for my email list yet, go to getpaidforyourpad.com/newsletter. And sign up so I can send you emails. But I figured I should probably work on being a better writer. So I found this really cool app called Hemingway app, it's called, and it's a free app. If you manage to find the right URL, it's a free app, and it basically shows you copy paste text in there, and it basically shows you exactly what parts aren't readable. It gives you live suggestions to change words and change sentences and stuff. And so That's probably not a bad idea to copy paste your Airbnb listing in this Hemingway app, and you use the suggestions that they give to make it more readable. But going back to the ranking factors, the only thing that I can really come up with that makes a lot of sense when it comes to listing word count, sometimes you see these Airbnb listings that have no description at all, almost. And I think that's a bad thing, right? Airbnb definitely doesn't want that. So I wouldn't be surprised if the way that they use this factor, it's not necessarily the more words, the better. But I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of punish listings that have an extremely small amount of words. So if you're like less than 200 or 300 or whatever, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of punish your visibility there, because it's probably a sign to them that your listing isn't very good. If you didn't write anything, or you just wrote like a few small paragraphs, it's probably not a listing that they want to show to people. But I think if you're over a certain reasonable amount, I can't imagine that just adding 5,000 extra words is going to help your listing ranking. You can write a whole novel in your Airbnb listing, and it's not going to help. Let's go through some other ranking factors. So number 4, minimum stay length. This is something that I always recommend people, especially in the beginning, just set it to 1, even though it's a hassle to deal with 1-day stays. It's at the same time, if you're starting out and you get like 21 night bookings in the first month, your visibility is gonna explode with 20 reviews, 20 bookings, 20 20 of everything. That's going to really give you a lot of momentum, I think, even though it's a pain in the ass. So I'm not surprised to see that kind of up there, because I think Airbnb really likes listings that are available, that are easy to book. That's why instant book is also a factor. Another factor could be cancellation policy. Now, cancellation policy is an interesting one because it's ranked number 20 at only 0.38 correlation coefficient, but that's kind of a tricky one because there's different policies. So the question is really, I'm pretty sure that having a flexible cancellation policy is what gives you the benefit of a better ranking, because in the end of the day, Airbnb wants to make its platform user friendly. I think we've seen that, right? They've really been pushing instant book. They've really been pushing the flexible cancellation policy as well. And so I'm pretty sure that those are positive factors. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's kind of, it's about removing the friction, right? That's what Airbnb is trying to do, is they're trying to remove the friction to have people make that booking decision, right? So if their goal is to have people book in 3 days, how can we have people book in faster time? And it is no secret that having instant book is just the way to go. I just don't think it makes sense to go and have a listing on Airbnb if you don't have instant book on, because you can add rules on there, right? You don't actually have to be too fearful of the fact that people are just going to come into your listing and then you're not going to want them there, right? You can have rules where people that come to your that book your listing instantly are recommended by another host. That's a whole filter right there that you could take advantage of. So for sure, it just comes down to thinking about the what Airbnb thinks is good for their business, and essentially really just thinking about it from that perspective, right? And of course we want things to be good for us, but since we're on their platform, we kind of have to play by their games. I think one thing I wanted to mention as well is that so at the top here, because we're looking at this table here, which I think Jasper, you're looking at there with the different colors. If we go to the top here, we've kind of got the table of contents right above the video, or right below the video. And this is the whole blog post essentially, right? So this is because we talked about that study before where you mentioned cancellation policy. So that study's quite old. And the cancellation policies have changed since that time too. So I think it might be, I'm not to say it's irrelevant, because of course those things are is still important for just having people decide. I'm sure that if you've booked an Airbnb listing and somebody, doesn't allow you to cancel at all, or you don't get any of your money back, it's like very, very strict or something like that, then, unfortunately the chances of people booking with you is just lower, because you're basically having that person take on all of the risk, of it, versus, you as a business taking on some of your risk, which is why, companies have, money back guarantees and all that kind of stuff. I think actually, so one thing I want to talk about too is that the Airbnb ranking factors that we are aware of are certain things, right? Like, there's, we've got them listed here, and if you want, you can, I'm sure you can look at the show notes and stuff like that Jasper will have. But one thing that we have to keep in mind of is that there's just certain things that we cannot measure, right? So there's the, and that's because Airbnb is not going to let us measure it, because it's part of what they look at, right? And what I mean by that is, just think of when somebody starts doing a search, and if you can break down each part of those aspects into, almost like, how you're given like a booking rate percentage, right? Because that's something that Airbnb is important. So that is, and it'd be crazy for us not to think that a booking rate percentage that is higher is not going to lead to higher search visibility, because of course, if Airbnb is sending more people to you and you have a good booking rate, then you're going to get more search visibility. But again, so if we go back to like the very beginning, like when somebody starts doing a search, it's that first part. It's like, how many people are searching that day, and then how many people see your listing, as an impression, let's say, and then how many of those people actually click through. And if you can think of that as, a different metric, and then from that part, when people click through to your listing from the search results, then, how many of those people are going to book with you right away? How many people are going to message you, which is an important thing? And then how many people are going to inquire with you? And that's slightly different, right? Because if you have instant booking settings and somebody wants to book with you and they're not of the caliber that you're looking for, then they have to inquire with you. So those are the three different areas that somebody's going to land on your listing. And if you think about those as different, essentially, I mean, those are ranking factors, right? Like when somebody, how many times somebody lands on your listing and then decides to book with you right away, I'm going to imagine has a bigger weight to Airbnb, because of the simple fact is it's just more appealing. It's better for people to make that instant decision, And then also, sorry. So there's also another part of it too, is like when somebody messages you, and either as an inquiry or just as a contact, then how many of those people that message you actually end up booking with you too? And that's another aspect. And those things, you actually can calculate that, because it's easy, because you could do it manually yourself and things like that. But that is stuff that Airbnb is keeping track of as well, right? So if you can break down that entire booking flow from when somebody searches to somebody books or contacts you or doesn't book with you, that all is the stuff that almost is not measurable by us and only by Airbnb, but of course is something that's very important.
That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Let's see. Any other factors that I wanted to discuss? I think some obvious ones are like, how quickly you respond, your response percentage. Like obviously you want to respond to every single inquiry, and you want to respond as fast as possible. That's an important one. There's the amount of times your listing is saved to the wish list. There's number of amenities. There's a whole bunch of other factors, but I think we've probably gone through the most important ones, I would say. Would you agree?
Yes, I would. I think maybe the one thing that might be on people's minds is, well, maybe there's two things. Wish lists are, I think, are a good thing to be doing if you're not, if you're not if you're not getting people to wish list your stuff on purpose, or if you're, it's just an important thing that Airbnb has mentioned, as they have mentioned it as a ranking factor. But the one thing that they have said as well is that it's not something that's like an immediate effect. Like obviously sometimes you'll see if you adjust your price in some manner, then you'll see a drastic change in your visibility, plus in your bookings too, right? Whereas with wish listing is kind of like a long-term game. It's not like, if you get if you get 20 wish lists in a day, then Airbnb, is going to jack your right number to the first position or anything like that. So it's wish listing is a long-term play. Is one thing that I'd like to say. And then also personalization. Personalization is a huge thing, right? Because the Airbnb is, like any of these other tech giants, and they're constantly trying to add in, some more smarter technology into their business, right? So things like artificial intelligence, which is essentially, just a part of personalization in a way. So the whole point of, getting more search visibility and every guest count, not just, being number one, but just making sure that if you have 8 listings, if you have 8 guests that can fit into your listing, you want to make sure that you're able to be found in all of those guest counts, right? Most likely you're not going to be found very well on the first guest count, just because the fit's not there, right? It's likely that someone's not going to book your place. But if you're showing up there, that's a good sign, right? Like because Airbnb really only shows you 17 pages, right? But if you're showing up on those 17 pages, like that's a great thing, personally to me. So there's a personalization aspect to it. So every time when somebody comes into Airbnb and they're clicking around, that's what is so important, right? Because you want to be one of those first people that they click on, because from there, Airbnb is kind of adjusting things to suit what they believe is important to them, right? So if they're, I guess we'll kind of go from the standpoint of a situation. So let's say you are let's say you're a lady, and the last time you booked Airbnb, you were booking for a bachelorette party that housed 12 guests. It was you and 11 other ladies for a good time there. And that was the last booking that you made, right? So when you come onto Airbnb the next time, you're going to see, it depends, like how long the last time you made that booking. But, if it was something that was really close to the date, then yeah, you're going to be shown a lot of different listings that are houses that are very similar to the things that you booked in the past, and with every click that you make, things are going to change for you. There's always going to be these standard ones that Airbnb has around, that they're not going to 100% personalize their search for you, but they are going to add in little different things. Like for example, I think one thing that people always mention to me is just that, I always just notice I'm always number one in my in my every time we search for in my area and stuff like that. And then I ask them, are you logged in? Is that why? And if you're logged in and you're number one, it's because you visit that listing the most. So Airbnb just keenly thinks that you're more attracted to that, right? And to be honest with you, it probably is just a pain in their butt too if it were the other way around, because then if people didn't see their listing at the very front there, then they might freak out and contact Airbnb, right? So it works in their favor to show people listings that they visit as a host as well.
it's like, hey, look, your listing is on page number 1. Don't worry. Go back to sleep. That's funny. Were you done talking, or were you?
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, man. I think we've covered a lot, and I'm sure we can keep talking for a couple hours. But the next thing I wanted to talk about is you've developed some really awesome software. It's called Rank Breeze, and essentially what it does is you can use it to optimize your listing, to improve the search results. Right? You can use it to first of all track the position in your search results, and then you can optimize your open calendar dates. You can repeat positive actions that improve your rankings. And you can look at weekly reporting of your listings SEO performance. So tell us more about this tool called RankBreeze.
Sure. So the whole mission behind RankBreeze is to improve your search visibility and get you better booking rates as well as improve your visitor counts. And I know that's those are three important areas that we believe are kind of those great signals for Airbnb. And if we align ourselves with Airbnb in that manner, then I don't see how we could go wrong, to be honest with you. So that's the whole mission behind RankBreeze, and it is a software toolkit for Airbnb optimization. What we do is, we track your search visibility, and when I say search visibility, it is different than rankings, right? Rankings, sometimes a ranking is like one position, right? But search visibility is where you perform all across the board. So it's not just about it's not just about if in a way, like if you talk about Airbnb, your Airbnb ranking, in a way, you're never going to just rank number 1 or number 10 or anything like that, because it's just, there's thousands of different ways that Airbnb that people search on Airbnb, and that's kind of our whole point, right? So we're trying to give you an idea of where you stand across the board. So that means looking at every single guest count that you have. So if you have 16 guests that you can have in your listing, then it matters where you're going to be sitting in those 16 guests. Obviously, not as much in those first for guests 1 to 3 possibly, right? That just is just not economical for people to stay there for listing that big. But nonetheless, it's stuff that we provide in terms of the software there. And we look at a few different searches as well. So it's not just we everything we do comes down to looking at each and every guest count that you have. But then we've also got your open calendar ranking. So where are you sitting in the future, right? So where are you sitting in the future? But then so for example, if you have your next 4 calendar dates open, what and how are you doing for the searches for those upcoming dates, right? Because that's important for you to close in your next 30 days, essentially, right? And then also what you're getting to is that we're giving you some details and background in terms of what other people are doing as well for those specific dates. So what's the price and stuff like that, so you can kind of optimize for that. One thing I think is very interesting is that it allows you to look at supply and demand too. So the max amount of listings that Airbnb will show you for a given search is 306 listings. All right. So anything below that, which you'll see inside of RankBreeze, is that you'll see, you might see that you are ranked 10 out of 120, basically. So that's telling you that there's less supply. There's significantly less supply for that date, and that'll help you, maneuver Airbnb a little bit better in terms of supply and demand, like what we've been talking about. So that's kind of one feature there. And we've also, like we said, we try and give you as much search visibility as possible. So we're looking at not only those calendar rankings, but we're also looking at what we call the top level city rankings. So how do you compare against every single person in the city? Because at the end of the day, Airbnb is just, I don't know if I like to say it, but it is exactly what it is. We are just numbers. All those listings are just numbers inside of Airbnb, and Airbnb has to arrange us in 1 to 70,000 or something like that, right? You can't just have 2 people in the same spot. So everyone has to be ordered in one way or another, right? Either you're number 1 or you're number 10, or there's no 10.5 or anything like that. It's 11 or 12. So the top level city rankings is how you sit from the entire view. And this is the hardest to maneuver, but it is actually the purest form of rankings that you can look at, right? So if you look at, and how we do that is we just look at the searches on Airbnb without any dates or anything like that. All we look at is the city, plus the guest count and how you're aligned against all those people. Because at the end of the day, all those, like the dates and the dates and the amenities and stuff like that, those are just filters the Airbnb is putting on you. So every time you attach that filter on, then the stronger that you appear in what we call the top level city rankings, then the better you will do across the board. And we have seen that. We have seen people that perform better on in the city rankings perform much better in their calendar rankings and all the other rankings basically. So that's the search visibility aspect of it. And where things come in very interesting in terms of being like, a tool, an SEO tool, a search engine optimization tool, is the first part of any the first part of any proper SEO is that you have to know where you're coming from, right? And that's kind of the whole reason why we've got why you want to track your rankings, because oftentimes what you will do is you will adjust things and you do not know whether or not it made a positive or negative effect. If you have dealt with any sort of search engine optimization, you'll know that things just take a long time, just a long time to start seeing positive changes or even negative changes, right? So that's kind of what we've done here is we've built in this thing. It's called an optimization journal. So essentially, anytime you're going to switch these photos out or make any kind of large significant change to your listing, then you can actually see and timestamp it inside of the charts, so you can see. Basically, it's an annotation of on the chart to see whether or not that change made a positive or negative effect on your rankings and stuff like that. So that's kind of how it works. Well, that is how it works. And people are using RankBreeze right now for, I'm sure, ways that they don't even want to tell me, because we've got all these different users, and we look at them and I'll talk to people and they said, oh, we're using this tool. Oh, we're constantly uploading our photos up in every single day, refreshing those photos. Or, oh, we built some links from Google to our listing so that we can get some more views in that way. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that people are using the tool. But at the end of the day, it comes down to actually just putting in that timestamp there and seeing the historical significance of that specific change to your listing. On our end, we have this. I guess it's a listing optimization service on that comes along with RankBreeze, the software toolkit. And what that is we just have a whole process, we'll call it our methodology of how we recreate and build these optimized listing descriptions. And from our standpoint, what we've seen is that it takes between 30 to 40 days for that stuff to come into effect and really make a difference there. So that just gives you an idea for how long it takes to actually make these improvements and see things in a positive light. It's the long game.
It's a long game, but it's a good game. If you want more information about RankBreeze, then you can go to rankbreeze.com. So it's RANKB as in boy, REEZE.com. And there's some cool videos. It's a very beautiful website. I'm going to have to pick your brain in the future when it comes to design, because I think I can learn a lot from the way you designed your website. And also remoteskill.com is where people can find the blog posts and a lot of the ranking factors and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to put all this information and all these links, I'm going to put them in the show notes at getpaidforyourpad.com/podcast. That's where you find all the podcast episodes. And last but not least, if you want to try RankBreeze, you can. If you just go to the website rankbreeze.com, you'll see that the pricing it's $12 per month for a starter package, which tracks free Airbnb listings. Then it's $25 for up to 10, and then it's $60 per month for 30 listings. Is that 30 listings or more, or is it the maximum of 30 listings?
It's 30 listings. That's the max. If they have more, they can come and contact us.
Okay, cool. But of course, there's a special offer that you can take advantage from. And so instead of 12, 25, and 60, you can actually, if you want to sign up, you can go to rankbreeze.com and then /get paid for your pad. And if you type that into your browser, then you're magically going to come to the same page, but with different prices. Instead of 12, 25, 60, they're all $10. $10 per month. That's for the first month, right?
Yeah,
exactly. So you can try this software for $10. It does have a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. So if you can try it for 30 days, and then you just tell Kevin, I'm sorry, your software sucks. I want my money back.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, and that's the whole point about what we said before. It's like that cancellation policy with Airbnb. You have to almost deleverage the risk for people to come and try you out, to be honest with you, right? That's just part of good business.
Got it. Awesome. So again, rankbreeze.com /get paid for your pad. That's where you can find the special introduction plan, $10 1 month. And you can get your money back if you don't like it, but I doubt it. I mean, I checked it out myself, and I'm pretty impressed, which kind of says a lot because there's so many tools out there these days, I was really impressed when I checked it out. Also, your blog, I immediately felt like, okay, this guy definitely knows what he's talking about. So I recommend everybody who's interested in improving their search ranking, go check it out. And that brings us to the end of this podcast episode. I think we've been talking for a long time. We'll probably get you on again because I feel like there's more stuff to talk about. But we'll leave that for another time.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk more. Airbnb is I'm sure that whatever we talk about today is going to be slightly different the next conversation that we have.
Probably yes. Anyway, Kelvin. Oh my God! Now I'm like your grandmother, basically. I'm getting old, I guess. Kelvin, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've learned a lot from reading your blog posts at remoteskill.com. So thank you for putting out this awesome content, and thank you for creating this really awesome tool. And I'm sure we'll keep in touch, and I'll get you back on the show to talk more about some other stuff. For the listeners out there, thank you for listening. And if you want to stay up to date on what's going on in the world of Airbnb and what I'm up to and new content, etc., just go to getpaidforyourpad.com on the front page so you can sign up for my newsletter. And also, I wanted to encourage people, check me out on Instagram, getpaidforyourpad on Instagram, because I started doing lots of stories, and I'm working on joining Instagram TV as well, and put some cool videos up there and stuff, some educational material. So that'd be fun. Hit me up on at getpaidforyourpad on Instagram. If you send me a link to your listing, by the way, then I'll feature you. Or you can post a picture and just tag getpaidforyourpad, and I'll feature your listing on my Instagram. It's got like 20,000 followers or something, so that's pretty good. It's going pretty well at that. Anyway, that's the end of the episode. Thank you for listening. And of course, next Wednesday, there'll be another episode. So I hope to see you then. Well, I won't see you, but I hope you will listen. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.